TomoNews presents Helicopter Crashes. At least 3 injured in dramatic helicopter harbor crash. That helicopter you just saw slam into Pearl Harbor had 5 people on board. 3 of them were taken to a local hospital following the Thursday accident in Honolulu, Hawaii. Among them is a 16-year-old boy, whose condition is reportedly critical. The crash was captured by eyewitness Shawn Winrich. In this video posted to YouTube, he describes the accident in his own words.
And the helicopter started coming in low and straight at me. And right after the crash, 3 individuals surfaced right away. Another one seconds later. And a minor was retrieved a few minutes later.
The chopper reportedly belongs to company Genesis Aviation, which operates helicopter tours of Hawaii. Federal transportation and aviation officials are investigating the accident.
All on board escaped safely after U.S. Marine Corps helicopter crashes at sea. No troops were seriously hurt after a helicopter carrying 25 U.S. Marines crashed at sea while attempting to land on an amphibious transport dock on Monday. The CH-53E Super Stallion helicopter was carrying 25 people, including 17 Marines and 8 Navy sailors, back to USS Mesa Verde from a training exercise in Djibouti when the incident occurred. As the chopper was about to land on the ship in the Gulf of Aden, it crashed and ended up in the ocean. The USS Naval Forces said the crash was not triggered by hostile attacks. All soldiers on board were rescued, and several who suffered minor injuries received medical attention on the ship.
A private helicopter crashed in Dubai on Wednesday while taking off, injuring the 2 people on board. The accident took place at Dubai's Palm Jumeirah. The helicopter with 2 men on board took off from the Atlantis Hotel. And crashed shortly afterwards, injuring both people on board. They were transported to a local hospital by police rescue helicopters. One of them is said to be in critical condition, while the other is reported to have moderate injuries.
Video shows Colombian Black Hawk helicopter exploding. Colombian news station Noticias RCN released a video depicting the moment a Colombian Black Hawk military helicopter exploded on June 22nd. The helicopter was destroyed by landmines while it was making a landing in a rural area in Colombia's Norte de Santander province. The National Liberation Army, or ELN, claimed responsibility for the attack. 4 soldiers were killed and 6 others were wounded out of the 15 soldiers on board.
The helicopter, an Augusta Westland 109, crashed into a construction crane on top of the tower, 1 St George Wharf in central London at 8 a.m. on Wednesday. The helicopter exploded as it hit the crane, then cartwheeled down and landed on 2 parked cars, which also exploded. 2 people are reported dead, at least 11 are injured. Helicopters should normally fly at least 150 meters above tall structures.
Members of a Mexican drug cartel shoot down a military helicopter. A drug cartel shot down a Mexican military helicopter last week. This marks the first time a rocket-propelled grenade has been used by a cartel against a military aircraft. In Mexico's Jalisco state, a military helicopter was shot down as it followed members of the Jalisco New Generation cartel early Friday morning. The helicopter was carrying 18 soldiers and federal police officers. Cartel members shot a rocket-propelled grenade at the helicopter. The grenade hit the helicopter's tail rotor, forcing the aircraft to make an emergency landing and killing 6 of the passengers. Witnesses say that 2 other helicopters exchanged gunfire with the cartel members. The cartel members fled when ground troops arrived. Mexican authorities say that the New Generation cartel has grown so powerful that it's begun to produce its own weapons.
Helicopter crash kills Malaysian diplomat and Prime Minister's aide. Former envoy to the U.S. and member of Malaysia's parliament Dr. Jalaluddin Jarjas and Chief of Staff to the Prime Minister Datuk Azlan Alias, as well as 4 others, have died in a helicopter crash. On Saturday, a corporate AS-365N2 Dolphin helicopter carrying several VIPs from the wedding of the Prime Minister's daughter crashed in bad weather. It left the wedding in Pekan, then dropped off one person in Muazzam Pahang before heading toward Kuala Lumpur. 6 people were aboard the helicopter, including Malaysian MP Dr. Jalaluddin Jarjas and Datuk Azlan Alias, aide to the Prime Minister. The helicopter encountered a strong downpour over Semenyi, southeast of Kuala Lumpur. A guard at a rubber plantation reported seeing the helicopter explode in mid-air. The helicopter then crashed in a rubber plantation and exploded again. All 6 aboard died in the crash.
Mexican cartel members shoot down army chopper. A Mexican military helicopter was shot down by cartel members in Jalisco state, killing 3 soldiers on board and injuring 12 others. A Mexican military helicopter with 18 security personnel on board was taking part in an anti-cartel operation in Jalisco on Friday when it spotted carloads of cartel members on the road. The cartel members opened fire at the helicopter, striking its tail rotor, forcing it to make an emergency landing. 3 soldiers were missing after the attack. It was believed that the Jalisco New Generation gang was behind the attack.
Pilot killed in Colorado medical chopper crash. The pilot of a medical helicopter was killed and his 2 colleagues were injured when their aircraft span out of control and crashed seconds after takeoff on July 3. A Flight for Life helicopter took off from St. Anthony's Summit Medical Center in Frisco, the 64-year-old pilot joined by a paramedic and a flight nurse. The hospital complex serves the area around Frisco, about 70 miles west of Denver. A witness told local media the helicopter rose to perhaps 100 feet, then lurched and began to spin out of control. The spinning helicopter drifted about 320 feet to a parking lot where it crashed into an RV and a pickup truck. The helicopter's fuel set off a large explosion, engulfing all 3 vehicles. One witness saw the pilot trying to escape through the shattered windshield. He and hospital staff pulled the paramedic and the nurse to safety. The pilot, identified as Patrick Mahaney, died at the scene. Investigators say it could be days before they have an idea of what went wrong. The 2 crews suffered non-life-threatening injuries. Mahoney was a Vietnam veteran pilot and had been with Flight for Life for 27 years.
4 dead after medical helicopter crashes in California. 4 people died when a medical helicopter crashed on its way to hospital in Southern California on Thursday. The air ambulance was traveling with 4 people on board from Porterville Airport to San Joaquin Community Hospital in Bakersfield, a 10-minute flight. There was dense fog and heavy rain in an area with overhead power lines. At around 7:30 p.m., after there was no contact with the helicopter for 30 minutes, a search began. It took about 2 hours to find the helicopter debris in a rural area of mostly orchards near the town of McFarland. There were no survivors. A patient, a pilot, a flight nurse, and a flight paramedic died in the incident. The cause of the crash is still unknown.
2 British men and their Russian guide died while on a fishing expedition in Russia's Murmansk region on Sunday morning after being struck by their helicopter's rotor. The 5-seater Eurocopter E-120B aircraft landed at a luxury fishing campsite in the country's remote Kola Peninsula around 11 a.m. The pilot unloaded the passengers close to the Redna River and began to take off. According to one report, a strong gust of wind might have caused the chopper to tilt, causing the craft's rotor blade to strike the men, killing them. The pilot issued a distress signal immediately after the accident. The pilot survived but suffered minor injuries.
U.S. Marine helicopter found crashed in Nepal. The wreckage of a U.S. helicopter that was delivering aid to earthquake victims has been found near the Chinese border, Nepal's defense secretary said on Friday. The U.S. Marine helicopter, with 6 Marines and 2 Nepal Army soldiers on board, disappeared around 10 p.m. local time Tuesday night in the mountains of Nepal. The UH-1Y Yui helicopter was found today in a burned condition east of the capital of Kathmandu. The wreckage was found on a steep mountain slope, along with 3 bodies, at an altitude of 1,200 feet. The other 5 people on board are also feared dead. The search operation involved U.S. and Nepali military helicopters and 400 Nepali ground troops.
Human remains found after Florida military helicopter crash. Human remains have been found after a Black Hawk helicopter carrying 11 Marines and soldiers went down during a training mission off the Florida Panhandle on Tuesday night. The missing 7 Marines and 4 Army crew were involved in an amphibious operations training exercise that included inserting and extracting Marines from the water by helicopter. The 11 servicemen were on board a UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter that took off from an airport in Destin, Florida, before joining a second Black Hawk for the training exercise along a stretch of beach from Destin to Pensacola. The Black Hawk went missing around 8:30 p.m. amid bad weather conditions, with poor visibility near Eglin Air Force Base, over the Gulf of Mexico, about 50 miles east of Pensacola. A Coast Guard vessel recovered debris from the helicopter, including its tail rotor, at around 2 a.m. Helicopter debris and human remains washed ashore near Eglin the following morning. The air search was suspended on Wednesday due to thick fog and is expected to resume midday Thursday. A Navy helicopter crashed into waters off the coast of Virginia on Wednesday morning, a day after 4 U.S. soldiers were killed in a separate helicopter crash in Norfolk, England. An CH-53E Sea Dragon helicopter went down in the ocean about 18 nautical miles east of Cape Henry in Virginia on January 8th, killing 2 U.S. sailors. The helicopter's crew sent out a distress signal at around 10:45 a.m. before crashing into the water soon after. Another Sea Dragon helicopter in the same area immediately arrived to provide support. A Coast Guard cutter Shearwater that happened to be nearby was called for assistance and immediately responded. The sailors who were found were lifted in rafts from the water in 2 rounds. 2 sailors were killed and 3 others were injured. 5 hours after the crash, officials gave no indication that they knew where the 5th missing sailor was, nor what may have caused the helicopter to go down.
Seattle News helicopter crash kills 2 next to Space Needle. 2 people were killed when a helicopter belonging to Seattle news station KOMO4 crashed immediately upon takeoff from the company's office next to the Space Needle on Tuesday morning. The Seattle news station KOMO helicopter lifted off in a 2-mile-per-hour wind. Witnesses said it had only raised about 5 feet off the helipad. The helicopter then appeared to tilt, correct itself, then fell abruptly. It crashed on Broad Street next to the Space Needle, destroying 3 vehicles. Burning fuel spread down Broad Street. The crash occurred between the KOMO office and the Space Needle near the corner of Broad Street and John Street. 2 occupants of the helicopter were killed in the crash, but the drivers of the 3 destroyed vehicles all escaped, though one suffered burns to 50% of his body and is in critical condition.
A U.S. military helicopter has crashed at Hunter Air Base near Savannah, Georgia. 1 soldier was killed and 2 were injured after the craft made what the Army described as a hard landing late on Thursday night. A U.S. helicopter has crashed at a base near Savannah, Georgia, killing 1 soldier. The MH-60 Black Hawk helicopter was attempting to land at Hunter Army Airfield at around 11:30 p.m. on Thursday. An Army spokesman said the helicopter was returning from a routine night training mission when the craft made a hard landing. The impact killed 1 soldier and injured 2 others. The helicopter was part of the Night Stalkers, formerly the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, a group that specializes in night raids into enemy territory, and is the same group that piloted helicopters carrying the US SEAL team members that killed Osama bin Laden in 2011.
Men arrested for flying drone too close to NYPD helicopter. 2 men were arrested and charged with reckless endangerment on Monday, after police say they flew a remote-controlled drone dangerously close to an NYPD helicopter. After midnight on Monday, an NYPD helicopter spotted a small drone near the George Washington Bridge at 2,000 feet. It came within 800 feet before the chopper changed direction to avoid a collision. The drone then flew to northern Manhattan, with the police helicopter following behind. The drone landed on a car near Audubon and Fort George Avenues. NYPD officers arrived to arrest Remy Castro and Wilkins Mendoza, who had been controlling the drone. NYPD says the men endangered the helicopter by flying at 2,000 feet, but their lawyer argues that they were only flying the drone at 300 feet. Castro and Mendoza were charged with felony reckless endangerment and released without bail.